found our Black heritage talent. So great, each of us. So we've just joined an incredible organisation. How should, from your perspective and your experience, what should organisations think about when it comes to retention and development? So what are the structures that they truly need to think about without leaning into a deficit model of let's fix the Black heritage candidate that's coming through the door, let's fix the female. What do they really need to think about to stand up solid interventions that make you feel welcomed and that you belong in these environments?
I always talk about two sides of the coin. You know, the side of, like you said about supporting organisations to be aware of the, I think you said deficit. I'm not sure what word you said, but and I deficit really hear model. That about, I hear that about equity, because I think it's important. A deficit model doesn't equate to lesser. And I think that thing about what is it as an organisation you need to understand to ensure that who's coming into your organisation feels equal and that there's equity. And I think you simply ask. You know, like we said, we're not a monolith. So asking, understanding, what is it you need? How can I help you? What are the needs you want us to take into consideration? And I think that should be for everyone, because everyone has different needs. But I think that's really important. I think working with the majority. So we were talking before, wasn't it, about you can be coming into teams who've never had a woman before, never had a person of Black heritage, never had a young person before. You know, how are we working with those who you'd see in the majority in your workforce to actually understand what it means to be inclusive and welcoming, and to be, it's okay to say, I feel really awkward, or I feel uncomfortable, I don't know what to do, or what if they say something that I don't get, or I say something that offends them. And I'm not saying that we excuse conscious bias. Let me not confuse things here. What I'm saying is genuinely, where someone says, you know, I'm not sure, I've never worked with someone who's this young before, I'm not sure what their needs are, just to be able to encourage managers to feel okay to ask. We mustn't miss out our recruiting managers, our hiring managers. It's really important that we support organisations to support them now at the, you know, even before you're looking for the talent that you haven't got. How are you working with your managers? What's the leadership and talent development in that space about actually leading inclusively and feeling okay to develop dynamic, diverse teams? I feel that is such a gap at the moment in what we're seeing. And I think leadership development programs, but coaching is a great way to do it, because you can work with people on their individual challenges and needs. It really gives you that space to do that.
Spot on. But just the power to say, I don't know. They are my favorite kind of client. It's like, we don't know. Will you please help us? And not to say that we have all the answers, but there's something in the co-creation and really acknowledging where you are on your journey.
Yes.
And then following up with the interventions, as Mon said, like the coaching, the development, the support, supporting the leaders, because they don't know. We've had to know overnight. We've had to really navigate some really difficult waters and have conversations that never before, but even as a Black, coming from the Black community, conversations I've never, ever had to have in my career. So if that's how we feel, then it's even more daunting for majority communities, because it's like, I don't know where to start. I might get cancelled. But having trusted advisors like us in the work that we do, say you don't know.
Yeah. Something you mentioned earlier about succession and young people. I think having a plan for people who are there, you know, very rarely do you come across companies who have no one. And when they just focus on new and incoming, that's also a problem for me. I think that looking at the entire life cycle, looking at, you know, Mary, who's 35 and been here for a couple of years, what's happening with her?
Yes.
Making sure that it's internal as well. And that's everybody, because everybody is touched by this. But when I think I have a little bit of a pink flag when it's just all about the new, because that won't fix the current, and you can't expect 3 people to be more potent and create potency within an environment of 50, 100, 250, 1,000 people. So there is work to do with the internal team, I think, just as much as there is to do with the people that are new and coming in, if not so more, to ensure that there is inclusivity when those are coming in.
That's such a brilliant point, because actually there's something about the new and shiny coming in through the door.
I miss new and shiny. If I go into a role when I used to be an employee, favorite, oh my God, everything I say that comes out my mouth will be amazing, gems. Give me a year, that's rubbed off
12
now.
months,
like,
Cinderella.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you know, you proof, you know, she's gone now, or we don't believe what she's saying, or whatever it may be, like, she's just not shiny anymore.
Yes.
And that happens to a lot of people when they join an organization, but especially us, because it's almost like, and it used to be when I was in employment, a shiny badge or something. I hired her. She's great, isn't she? Yeah, I hired her.
Yes.
I'm great anyway because I'm great, not because you hired me. But that's what happens. That recency effect, that newness, that shininess that comes alongside being whoever you've hired anyway. When that rolls off, that ball can be hard.
Yes.
It can feel really bad as an individual who has a lot on their shoulders for the community, because you now represent the world, because you're one of few as opposed to one of many. And you feel like you're letting people down, and there's so many and so looking after the team that are there and making sure that there's a lot of training and development around what it is you do and how you interact with everybody, how your company interacts with the world. So what do you make or do? Do you have a purpose? Really, really important for those coming in, but those that are there as well.
You're spot on, Tacita, because it's really important that we know about the organizational values, what they're doing from the outset. So it's a huge distinction of ours at Ruebik. So for every candidate briefing pack that we prepare for candidates before they meet with the business, it's really important that we share with them what they're doing from a DI perspective, what inclusion means to that business, and most importantly to that hiring manager, and then more about the role and the spec. So it's all weaved in together. It's not, this is what we need from you from that technical perspective. It's like, this is the big picture. This is their purpose. This is why they exist. So it's really important that we're sharing that insight to them.
What comes to mind, well, I just started to smile, is because it reminded me what you said, that it's a two-way street.
Yes.
And it reminds me of the session that we designed together when we were doing, you wanted to create a space in recruiting for an organization who did want to bring in more diversity into the top team. And you wanted it to be a two-way street where the candidates could also learn and really see that the values and the vibe, I want to use the vibe of the organization come to life. And you said, Monique, we need a session where we can facilitate this. It's a safe space, but it's also creates a dynamic where the candidates can meet the top team, meet some of the board, interact, work on something, to just get the space in the room where they could almost suss each other out a little bit. Test out, actually, I saw this on the website, or I saw this in the pack that Ruebik gave me, but when I've probed that with one of the seniors, what have they said? How have they reacted? How have they welcomed me? How has it felt? And I thought it was such a fantastic session to do that and have that as part of the journey into, am I right for you? But actually, no, are you right for me? It was that, are you right for me?
Spot on. And it was such a disruptive process. And I say that loving that it was disruptive, but also saddened at the fact that because we put the candidate in the heart of the process, that we call that disruptive, because it's not the experience, but it's not the experience. And in fact, in the case that you're referencing, there was no assessment of our candidates until the fourth stage in the process. They interviewed the business. The business were on the other side of the table. It was like, tell me about your organization. They were able to attend an event that the company was putting on at the time, so they really got to see the product and how the leadership team kind of came together, and then they interviewed the senior leaders, as Monique said. That doesn't happen.
No, it's something I mentioned all the time. We had a conversation about it earlier about that 50%. If you have a contract between an employee and an employer, that is 100%, and you each own 50%. Let me exercise my 50%. Yes. I matter in this process, and if I don't like you, I'm gonna deselect myself in this process. But working for someone isn't just your 40-hour a week thing. It's an investment of giving your blood, sweat, and tears to them. So, do they deserve that? Do they warrant that? What am I going to get in return apart from a package that's going to make me feel good, warm and fuzzy, that I know that I'm doing some good in this world, regardless of what I do? So important. So the fact that assessment didn't come till stage 4, that's really cool. I like that.
We ran the same process for a consumer retail business in the north of the UK who loved it. And when we said, look, we really suggest this approach, we would love for you to adopt this. There's a bit of nervousness and hesitancy around it, but they loved it. By the end, they were like, this was fantastic, because there's a real kind of gamification in between. So there are set questions that they get to ask at the third stage. And it's kind of like sat in the middle of the table and anybody can pick a question. So you don't know who's going to answer it, the CEO or the candidate or one of the, the CFO. Nobody knows who's going to get asked the question, but it just kind of creates more of a power balance. It shifts from what can you do for us? It just shifts it on its head. And then typically 15 minutes reserved in an interview process. It's like, well, what can we tell you about us? 15 minutes isn't enough. No. I'm making a life choice here.
Yeah, definitely.
But yet it's okay. And actually, I've got to ask something that you expect me to ask. Not really, truly, not really, truly kind of poke at the rug that is bubbling under there. It's like, what's underneath that? It isn't. It's to do with, the strategy or, what will good look like after 30 days? Those tried and tested. It isn't. You've got to create space where these candidates feel like, wow, this is the value that I can add to this business. This is the value that I bring. My difference is what's going to make me the outlier here.
So I have a question on that then. How do you encourage, I'm not quite sure the size of the companies that you did this with, but how could you encourage more companies of all sizes to adopt an approach like that? Because I think that's amazing. It makes you think of old school assessment centres, but modern, the right level, the right people. It's not a bun fight for the attention of those in the room. But I like the idea of the employee or the candidate, should I say, getting the opportunity to really root around, really dig around and see what's going on, ask the right questions and have the time of, if you said the CFO and the CEO are there, that's it, investment. This matters to you. This isn't just you popping your head in or blocking out half an hour, because the CEO chat in a recruitment process is normally like 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
So how do you do that for all sizes of companies, this sort of process?
And it's typically, and the CEO in the process, depending on the role, can kind of be it's a final stage, it's just the meet and greet. They have no real kind of say. It's like, we've already made the decision and they're going to say hi to you. I think that's a really good question. And I think that you answered it yourself. It's such a huge investment from the business. They've got to really want it. They've got to really want to shift the needle, because to me, it's a radical intervention. When a senior leadership team can sit down and say, we are dedicating half a day to this process because we want to make sure that the candidates have everything they need from us. That to me is an organization that has inclusion at the heart of their business. And they're really kind of walking the walk. And it's not just a pretty website with a load of diverse people. We are putting time and money behind this process. So it is hard to scale. I find that at a mid-size organization, it works really well because you've also got the GDPR and the confidential nature of the size of the role, and every candidate in the process has to agree to
do that,
sharing that they are in an open process. So there is a lot of kind of logistical kind of management that happens around it, but it can be done and done really well and effectively. But there is a certain kind of bravery from an organization that will
I think it's about the concept though, isn't it, as well? So the concept for a smaller organization, the concept might need to land a bit differently, but I think the real nugget in there is about, if you are genuine and if you really want to attract talent, I mean, look at how much it costs to find the right talent. And if you have the right talent, what that can do for you, your teams and your business, it's nothing. If you equate the cost the opportunity
you're saving
cost
money. You're saving money by doing a process like this. Absolutely.
And I think also, if the candidate says, this isn't for me, I didn't like it, and this is why, there is learning there. And again, so if you want to understand where you are on your inclusion journey, and if it doesn't go so well, and maybe the candidate you want doesn't want you, what's the learning from what they shared? What did they perceive and feel? Is there something you can understand better there? Is there something there that you can improve on? I just think it's a win-win to find the right people, to understand what they'll need to be a success and bring you success in your business. I think we should be investing so much more time into that space. And I think we missed the trick. And I missed it when I was an exec, I learned later on in my career about how important it was to try and find the right people, but really build that dynamic and understanding of where are you coming from versus where we're trying to get to. does that match not just your demographic, but actually where we're trying to get to and the value set? It's almost like a triangle, isn't it? That you're trying to land. Yeah. And if that intervention can bring that, I hope that we can find the way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. To bring that concept to any size of business.
Definitely. That's really powerful, Monique. And the one thing that we have done that's worked really well with the larger FTSE-sized organisations is ensuring that the first stage of any interview is conducted by the candidate with somebody in the business. So even if it's not the exec leadership team, but somebody equally as important who sits in talent acquisition, or the hiring manager, the first stage is an interview by the candidate. Not what can you tell us about the role that you're in? Why did you apply for the role? The candidate shows up to the Teams call or in-person meet, and it's like, can you tell me a little bit about the organization? What can you tell me that I can't find out on the website from the job spec? So they already feel like, great, I'm owning this process to some degree. Who are the people that I'm going to meet? What will they expect from me? Just that initial kind of 30-minute or 1 hour insight can mean the making or breaking of hiring somebody. It can really kind of have a huge impact. So that's what we're trialing right now with some of the larger organizations.
What that says to me in the both things you mentioned there, the assessment type day, I'm not quite sure what you call it, and this first stage being owned by the candidate, modern approach.
Yes.
We can't keep doing what we've been doing. The interview format has not changed for, I'd say, 40, 50 years. What they've done is it add stages to it. So in one interview, now it's 2, now it's 3. I had one job where I had 16 interviews. That's ridiculous. And we'll talk about that on another day. But all they were doing is a whole other podcast. But all that did was adding people. Nothing's different. Just meeting more people. So by, interview 4, like, have I got the job or not? Because all you're doing is grilling me, and I'm saying the same story to everybody. Mixing it up, changing it, is about making it more inclusive, because I might not do well in one type of setting, and you keep throwing the same setting at me and expecting a different result or the same result. I'm like, I'm tired. I'm having to look at my notes. I don't understand, whatever. So,
and by the way, I've got a full-time job.
And by the way, I've got a full-time job. I'm trying to do this, in my lunch break or after work, or I've got children, I've got a dog, whatever it may be. So changing it up the way in which you're describing makes you feel really happy for the modern way of working, and giving ownership back to the candidate on, do you want to be here? What do you think of them? Do you like them? What is it about you do and don't? So you are making an informed decision. At the moment, it's very much an employer picks. Here you go, here's 10 people, pick one, and I'll pick that one because I like them today. Or whatever, there would be more that goes into maybe competency-based or whatever, but it's very much about, I'll pick you. No, I want to pick you. I want to be part of this process. And if I say no, I want you to know why I say no.
Yes.
And we look at Gen Z coming through, and we were talking earlier about, young people and how they approach work and work ethic and all that stuff. I think this goes into a situation, what you're describing is, I'm going to show up here, but can you meet me as well, please? Can you meet me halfway? So we've got all the benefits in the world, a real lovely, sexy office, whatever it may be. We've got values, we're doing all the right stuff. We're ticking all the boxes that all the companies that are our competitors are doing also. So that's enough. Actually, as a candidate, it's like, no, can I just dig under your bonnet a little bit and see what's going on underneath your rug? I like it. I like it a lot.
And what are some of the key takeaways? So if we were to summarize our conversation today, where we want to leave one powerful piece of insight with the organizations that speak to us, that we want to work with, that really want to drive difference, they want to attract Black heritage candidates in a meaningful way, what should they be thinking about from the outset?
I think the first thing for me would be why, having a really crystal clear why. I think a lot of your why will come from what you see or what you do. And if that's what you want, or you want it, but also, what do you think is going to take you to get there? Because you can get that information kind of anywhere. Engage with someone who can help you. But the main thing is, don't try and do what you don't know. Because that's what comes out as unauthentic. Don't say what you don't know. Don't do what you don't know. Get help, I think is what I'm kind of working my way towards is, find the experts.
We worked with a client who had a really powerful why, and it made all the difference in how we were able to approach the market. So we were working with a construction business, 5th generation. The family are all straight white men, and they approached our business and said, look, we need perspective. As a construction business, regeneration is central to our strategy moving forward. We do not have any other diversity around this boardroom. We would like somebody who's come from a different socioeconomic background, because actually we want to create trusting relationships with the community that we're trying to serve. So they do a lot of work in Tottenham, my old area, in Haringey, in King's Cross. So we want to make sure that we're building relationships with these communities. So ideally they will come from diverse, preferably Black heritage community. And we need a female. We're all men here. So the reason and the ask was absolutely crystal clear. It was strategic. It was, we are missing a perspective, and this is how this person can really elevate this conversation. There is something missing. A community is missing here. How do we create space? So you're so spot on the reason as to the why. Why are we zooming in on Black heritage as opposed to we need to see more brown, Black, faces and women around the table. But why? There has to be that strategic impetus where that person feels like they're helping drive the business conversation forward, that they're innovating, they're creating too.
Even with what you just said, and if you look at something like gentrification, from a construction perspective, this happened because people around the table haven't said, actually, we need these shops and those shops and this type of service and that type of, because it's like, well, let's put in a Starbucks and a this and that, whatever. This is identikit. And the reason why we have identikit towns and is because it's a good example of putting in the reason why you need difference.
Yeah.
Everything looks the same and it gets boring, and it's not what the world want. The world want to see the difference. And so I like that as a really good example, a very strong why.
It is, because it's I think that finally we're getting to a stage where things are not happening to our community, it's happening with our community. And as somebody who, I'm from Gloucester but grew up in Tottenham, saw that happen because of gentrification, and it's like, well, who's benefiting here from the new stadium, from the new flats that are being put up, because it's not the luxury flats that our people now can't afford and being shipped out to Luton. How are these decisions being made? So it has to happen with us. So thank you for that insight.
It's understanding equity. So I think in terms of what we mentioned in our conversation, whoever you're bringing in, if it is Black heritage talent, ensuring that they have equity, and I think that is the real game changer in terms of, it's not tick box. You genuinely want them in your business. You want them to be part of the world of your business. You want them because you want them to feel great and you want them to succeed. And you want to understand what's needed to enable that, both for them and also for the colleagues that they're working with. So understanding equity and then addressing it to ensure that it's there.
And you said that earlier, Mon, and it really stuck with me, is that you bring somebody in, but their voice has to be heard. Their voice there's absolutely, it's so damaging to talent that you bring in and you've brought them in, but they're raising their hand, they're adding their voice, they're sharing ideas. And it's always a no. It's always we'll get to that. Or not even creating the space to be heard.
You want to
in those environments.
Maybe that's the way, if I was, I like to think about the how, isn't it? So if I was saying this in the how, you want to hear your new talent's voice. You want to hear it. You go and seek it. You want it.
Yeah, I love that.